everybody. I am so excited you're here. Stacy and I were just chatting in the green room, if you want to call it, about how much fun we are going to have talking about boundaries. Stacy, you and I have to first of all just say thank you to Stacy because we came into this meeting and I was like, okay, so this is the questions I'm going to ask you, and this is what we're going to do. And Stacey's like, I think we should just have a fun conversation about boundaries and why they're so hard. And I'm so glad that we took that approach. So thank you everyone for coming. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Stacy to introduce herself, and then I will do a quick intro, and we are going to get into it. So, Stacy, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. So, I guess that was my first boundary of the day. Was I have created a boundary for myself that is, I always have fun. I always try and make every opportunity to connect with my audience, to connect with you. I take it so seriously in terms of the authenticity, the fun. Like, am I telling it like it is? Am I really being truthful to my personal experience so that we don't and I don't know that our conversation today would have ended up that way, but so that we don't end up with a missed opportunity for us to be vulnerable and to really show the challenges that we've had and also overcome. Like, I'm in a different place with boundaries than I think a lot of the people listening, hopefully. And so we have a lot of wisdom to share. So anyway, just super grateful to Teresa for just being like, all right, sounds good. Let's do it. So she's following the improviser in her.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. So quick and short of my intro is that my name is Stacy Mayer. I am Chief Corporate Badass. And what that means is I help women step into their corporate badass self and get the money, the recognition, the titles that they deserve. I'm the host of Women Changing Leadership podcast and the author of Promotions Made Easy, a step-by-step guide to the executive suite.
So cool. And I was introduced to Stacy. We both I had also a coach, Eleanor Beaton from the incubator, and Stacy also had the same coach. And so that's how we met. And Eleanor's words will be in my mind as I today for sure.
100%. Yeah. And hello to everybody watching this. So I was so excited. I told Teresa this. So Eleanor has created a massive community of like the most badass female entrepreneurs I've ever met. And we all continue to keep in touch. I think I took my first program with her 3 years ago, and everybody who commented on this thread, so many of the women were women that we met through that program. And so it's really the power of community and the power for women to lift other women up and to come together in this platform. So I'm glad you said that about her and how we met, because it's huge.
Yeah.
So hello to all the Eleanor people. Say hi in the comments and let us know if you're how you know us.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. We're big Eleanor fans. And just a couple of things about me. So I am Teresa. I am founder of The Crucible. I'm an executive coach, and The Crucible is a group coaching program for women. And our goal is to help eradicate burnout at the executive ranks and to ensure that we can own both our time and our ambition if they don't come with this sacrifice that is so often part of our achievement-oriented culture. So this is why this topic is so key for both Stacy and I. We both serve similar clients in that many of them are corporate women. And one of the top questions we always get is as it relates to boundaries. Can we actually create boundaries and still achieve success? Will I burn bridges? I mean, we could go like in so many directions with this topic. And I know we don't have the time, but we do have tomorrow, so we will spill over there. But I would love to just start off with a question for both of us, really to kind of banter back and forth is like, I don't know about you, but I'm not good at creating boundaries. So tell me, are you?
I am actually going to say that I am amazing. And the reason I say that is because I think words matter, and I'm not lying but I made some pretty freaking fantastic moves at the end of 2022 that created so much freedom for me. And I'm really thrilled to share that with you. So am I perfect? Absolutely not at all. And do I fail pretty much every single day? 100%. But I'm going to lean more towards the I am better than some. And I also know and put some pretty badass boundaries in place that I can't wait to share with you.
Yeah.
What about you, Teresa? Are you good at it? I think it was a leading question, I felt like, on your part. So maybe
I know. I wanted so badly for you to agree with me. Oh, I'm bad at it too. But I also obviously I'm being a little tongue in cheek. I would say that I have become better at creating boundaries. So when I was in the executive ranks, I really didn't feel like I had a choice. That was like the first, I think, semblance of faulty thinking that I had as an executive, is that I felt as though I didn't have the power to exert a boundary. I felt that that was only my boss could do that. And so I kind of like just did with it whatever they asked and didn't even really stop to think, I'm ashamed to say, but I didn't really stop to think about, well, wait a minute, what is it that I need to be able to take care of myself or to give myself more space and time? And it was only until I, experienced a burnout myself many years ago that I really started to put in place that, hold on a second here. Self-care is not just a bubble bath and candles. It's really about being able to ask, what limits do I need to put in place for me to actually work at my full potential and not burn out? And it was during that particular episode for me, I think it was in 2015, that I really started to become better at asking myself the question, what is it that I need? Because boundaries for me start with, what is it that I need? And for me, I needed white space. I needed time. And so I've become much better at creating white space in my calendar so that I can have the option of saying yes or saying no to opportunities or things that come my way. So I would say that I've become better at it, but I still struggle with that. I think what many of us struggle with, many women in particular, is that people-pleasing nature of wanting to say yes to everything. I don't know if you still struggle with that too, Stacey. I don't know what you'd have to say about that.
Well, before I leave people hanging too long, so I have a lot to say about people pleasing. I'm the ultimate people pleaser. You've already bared witness that my eternal optimism, like everything in the glass is always full over here. And and actually the way I accidentally just said that, it's not even half full, it's full, right? This is the way I live my life. So people pleasing is a huge part of that. But before I kind of go on, I want to share like the big boundary thing that I did this year. And so basically, like what you're sharing about this idea of getting clear on what it is that we need. Let's just say that as an executive leader, that white space is not optional, right? Like if we don't really just want to, burn the candle at both ends. Like that's already kind of known. It's one of the reasons that I see that women don't raise their hand for promotions, because they don't know how to do it. But they're smart enough to at least know that that's like bare minimum white space, right? We don't know how to do it, but let's just start from that place. So at the end of the year, I noticed that my husband kept saying that I was working a lot at night, right? And I was like, that does not make any sense, because I'm not working at night. And like, you have no idea. Like, I was like, because what was happening was I was looking at my email and not responding to emails. So I didn't feel like I was working at night. I felt like I was checking my inbox. I felt like I was checking my Instagram feed. I felt like I was checking to make sure nobody needed me. But of course, nothing is urgent in the middle of the night. But I was checking it, right? And so I actually did not think I was working at all, because I really wasn't. I had this strong boundary that I would not respond to the emails in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And so at first, like for probably a while, I don't know, I'd have to ask him. I kept dismissing him. I was like, I'm not. So I'm smart enough to know that if enough people tell me that something's a problem, then I should probably listen to it. And sometimes my little kids will tell me that I'm working. And I'm like, I'm not working. I'm just looking at my phone. And,
God.
And I was like, Whoa. And so it's the end of 2022. I was having a conversation with my brother who was visiting. He's also an executive. And he was like talking to me about this. And I was like, I think it's a problem. I think I'm working. Even though I'm not working, I think looking at my phone is a problem. And he said, you know what? Just silence it, turn it off, like create the boundary within the boundary, just do this thing, right? You don't have to look at Instagram. And so basically, what that's the equivalent of is having chocolate chip cookies on the table every single day, but I should be strong enough not to eat them. And so that's like willpower boundaries, right? Yeah. And so it's like, I'm going to be strong enough not to look at but I'm going to keep my laptop there, but I'm going to be strong enough not to open it. And for a lot of women, that just creates the shaming cycle. For me, it was like, oh, I should be better. I could be better at boundaries. Maybe I just need to hard nose it, like whatever. So I decided not to listen to my brother. And I had a thought in my head that the people at Instagram and Facebook or whatever, and so we're talking Instagram and Facebook because for entrepreneurs, that's a huge part of my business. Like 3/4 is spending time on social media and marketing. So it's you can make that the equivalent of your email inbox, right? Like whatever that is for you. But for me, that is work, right? Like I'm on LinkedIn for work and this is my work. And so it's the same difference. I said the people at Instagram got paid a ton of money to make sure that I couldn't break that willpower. It's the same thing as the cookies. That sugar was created for us to want it, right? Instagram was created for us to want it, right? Our email inbox, we can talk about the corporate culture is created for us to be worker bees, to want to check our email, right? It's created that way. So if we just sort of look at that and we'd say, oh, okay, well, that's the way it is. We take the shame out. We take my willpower out. I'm not going to do that. So I instantly knew the answer. And I was like laughing because it helped so much. I bought a new phone and I bought a new laptop. I spent $2,500 on this problem. And I eliminated the chocolate cookies. I eliminated the problem. So I actually, my phone does not have any work information on it, is no longer a cross phone. I do not have a laptop that has both. I have two separate vehicles. And when I'm not working, I'm not working and I do not check it. And what I noticed, the first thing I noticed is the freedom I felt. I felt a little bit bored and I felt a little bit anxious. Yeah. I also was like, whoa, I just created a boundary. Like I created a huge boundary for myself. And so I guess to wrap that section up in terms of like what I did was I basically took the shame out of it. I stopped trying to willpower my way through it and I just dealt with the problem. And so that's my first piece of advice or, my soul story, but it has just profound impact on my work and my productivity. I'm getting everything done in twice the amount of time. I feel better, like just all these great benefits.
I love that you shared that, Stacey. And I actually really love that you shared the piece around willpower, because I am such a believer too, that part of the reason why we try these certain things, habits, routines, whatever it might be, and they fall flat is because we do have this over reliance on willpower. I don't know if you've heard of, I think it's like the knowing doing gap. And that's what this reminds me of a little bit. It's like you think once you know better that you will do better. So I know that I shouldn't be checking my email at night, but then why is it that come 8 o'clock, I find myself on there again and again and again? And I can relate to that too, because for me, it's the knowing isn't enough. Like all the head knowledge in the world about how often I spend on my laptop at night or my face is in front of a computer is not going to change. I mean, I too have two young kids. You were just sharing that our kids are both close in age. And, they actually have said to me flat out, Mom, like you are always on the computer. And oh my God, you're offending me. Don't you know I work from home now and I'm always in front of, and I had all these like ready-made excuses. And the truth of the matter is that I didn't have a shut off valve. And so one of the ways in which I asserted a boundary for myself was that we have this rule that we made it a family rule that between 3 and 4 every day, because I pick up my kids from school, there is no technology in our house. We literally sit together as a family and we just, ask about each other's day and we have conversations and sometimes we go for a walk. But the reason that boundary became successful for me was because we turned it into a fun, like family, almost like a family game, a family rule. And it became easier for me to hold to that because I had an accountability structure in place. It wasn't just me that was doing it. It was my kids, it was my husband. And so that would be like an example of a boundary that was easier for me to maintain, but I didn't have to white knuckle it because, right? Like that white knuckle approach never works. And that leads me to another thing around boundaries I'd love to chat with you about is around knowing what you want, right? Like I feel like boundaries fall flat when we're just creating these blanket statements without really first understanding, well, wait a minute, what is it that you really want to create in your career and in your life? If you say you value health, for example, then how do we create a boundary that allows us to make space for that true want and desire? So I'd love to hear more from you too about like how do we, you and I, and the others that are listening to us, align boundaries to what it is that we really want.
Right. So actually, I'm going to ask you this question because you were talking about people pleasing, and I wonder if there might be something connected to that. So people pleasing gets a bad rap, but I say that I really don't want more jerks in the C-suite. Like I have no desire to have people who have no desire to people please. Like people pleasing is a problem, but like what are we trying to create here, right? So we're telling women that they can't people please, and then we're getting, like then of course again they won't raise their hand for promotion. And so I wonder if there's something tied to this. So I'm going to put the question back on you with like people pleasing in terms of understanding what we want. Like if we just admitted that we desire to be kind, that we desire to be upfront, to be transparent, to be authentic, to be loving, to be kind, compassionate, right? Like that's what I think we actually want.
Yeah.
Then boundaries become counterproductive to that in the old way that we understand boundaries, which is much more aggressive, much more like, like what you were saying, that tunnel vision, like I have to say no to this. I have to speak up to this boss. I have to tell them what's up. I'm not going to do this. Right. So I wonder if there's something tied to people pleasing.
Well, what you're making me think about is I think even the word boundaries almost become for me not needed when it just becomes a natural extension of how you are and how you show up and how you lead. So, and I say that not in a in a kind of a flip fashion, but what I mean is that there's no need for me to worry about people pleasing if in fact I am very clear about how it is I want to show up. If it is I'm really clear about how I want to lead. And to your point, I like for example, I love humor and I love being able to laugh in the boardroom. I love to make jokes and I love to be able to, poke fun at myself sometimes. And like anytime I feel like I have to rein in how I show up, then that's what I think is a precursor to then not speaking up about what it is that you want or don't want, or if you want to say no to something, if you want to say yes to something. I think it just becomes a natural extension of who you are. So if I'm simply really just being who I am, kind, compassionate, empathetic, yes, even in the executive rank or even as a leader, then I'm not so worried about how I come across if I need to assert a boundary and say, no, not right now, that's not going to work. Or I think we need to do this instead. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And so one of the things that I noticed really early on is I would interview people who on my podcast, and time again, the women of color in particular. And I will say, and maybe this is a huge stereotype, but if you want to learn how to set boundaries, find a Black woman in executive leadership, and she's freaking figured it out. Like, I mean, like every woman that I speak with on my podcast would say, I just started being more authentic. And I was like, what? Like, you know, like you already stand out. You're not like the rest of the room. You don't think, you don't communicate, you don't look like the rest of the room. So why would you want to be more authentic to be successful? And they would always reply to, I stopped giving a, you know, crap, right? I was more myself. And so when we're true to who we are, what that actually looks like, and I call it authentic power. So, you know, that's our goal inside of my programs is we're creating this authentic power for ourselves. So we think of authenticity as less like vulnerability, you know, putting it all on the line, like showing all these things, or like even empathy and compassion as a weakness. But if we're so clear on who we are, what we stand for, our core values, then we are going to speak up, you know, proactively. We're going to, and I think where boundaries have bit us in the butt in the past is because we're being very reactive. And so we're getting almost burned out, and then we have to put the brakes on. But when you know that you're authentically powerful and that's how you're making decisions along the way, then you're willing to say ahead of time, look, this project is going to take longer than you think it is, right? Oh my gosh, how many times have you said that to your girlfriends, but you don't say it to your boss, right? And just saying ahead of time, not after the fact when you failed, right? Like I should have told you it's going to take longer. No, ahead of time, being smart enough, because we all know how long different things are going to take, how many resources that we have. So with resources, it's like, you know, when you know that, that's authenticity, right? I know I am so freaking powerful that I know that if I don't have a proper team, I'm not going to be able to deliver what you want me to deliver. So instead of saying, give me a team, because they're already telling you, no, we don't have resources, we can't give you a team. So you're just shaking them harder. And that's the boundary. I need a team if you want me to do it. Then tell them, be very clear. These are the things that are not going to happen because I don't have a team, right? We're not going to be able to produce this. We can produce this, and I will do that. And I will commit to that, right? And so like, that's the difference between knowing yourself, being willing to sort of say, hey, I'm not going to throw my team under the bus for this project, right? But I can throw my team under the bus for this project, right? This is what we're going to give you and deliver.
You know, I'm having such a visceral reaction right now because I literally just got off the call with a client before I joined you, and we were talking about this very thing, this sense of powerlessness versus having power. And I feel so compelled to say that our starting point when you and I work with clients, but our starting point with anyone is for me, it's this level of personal power. And what I think about is where we go amiss, where boundaries really get screwed up, is when we assume the position that others have more power over us, right? And it always gets me that there is this this learned helplessness, almost like there's this belief that we have that because someone is an authority, a boss, that they have more ability to control a situation or outcomes than you do. And it almost becomes rather almost like crazy making when I suggest to my clients that no, let's hold on here. Let's talk about the level of powerfulness you do have, and not in that like, you know, raw personal power kind of way. I'm talking more about this deeper, in some cases even quieter, full understanding of what it is you stand to give an organization or a team, and making sure that that personal power that we're striving for is one whereby we can really confidently state our value to a project. Like, one of the things I was sharing with someone else is one of the greatest lines I used to give my CEO back in the day was, I used to say from a place of power, look, you and I both know that I want to give my best to this particular project, but in order for me to do that, this is what sustainable success needs to look like. And
Mm-hmm.
because I said it with such fervor and with such belief in my ability to deliver, it wasn't questioned. And that
Mm-hmm.
leads me to thinking that so many times the reason boundaries fail is because the belief does not precede it. The belief that you have the ability to affect change or to have the power over how the outcome shows up is not there.
Yeah, like
You know?
every client I work with is a corporate badass, like from like already. Like, like
Mm.
I do not create them, right? What we're doing is we're stepping into our authentic power. That's the learned behavior, but really
Yeah,
they are a corporate badass. That's where I
yeah,
got the chief corporate badass nickname from my clients, because they were like, well, you're the chief corporate badass, you're the ultimate corporate badass, but we're all corporate badasses, right? Like that's like
yeah,
it.
yeah.
This actually, so I put a poll up before we met today about like what keeps you from creating boundaries, and I thought this was really cool because it just happened this morning.
Yeah.
So one of the women wrote, "You forgot," and I'm going to read it verbatim because I think it'd be interesting to talk about. She said, as one of your reasons why she wasn't able to create boundaries, a boss slash manager who threatens my ability to support my family. And so what I want to say to that is from an empowerment perspective, no person, no human being can threaten your ability to support your family, like in truth, right? But what we're doing is we're hitting our boss with family first. So here's a great example. I need to leave at 4 o'clock because I have to pick my kids up. And the next day you say, I need to leave at 4 o'clock. And what does your boss do every single day at 4 o'clock? He emails you and tells you all these things you have to do and all these reasons why you have to stay. And then you have to struggle to kind of get somebody else to pick up your kids, right? So that I can see on the surface is that boss is threatening your ability to support your family. But here's what I want you to see is that boss does not actually care about your family, like clearly. Right. And so this is why we need more empathy and leadership. We want people who truly care about us. But when a boss is negating they are actually not negating you or your family. Mm-hmm. What they're negating is really just showing you that they actually just don't care about it. Right. Like that's not their priority. What your boss's priority always is their job. Right. Like it's this incredibly selfish environment. Okay, fine. Right? Like it just is. Like it's where we start from, right? He cares about his job and getting his things done. So he's going to offload that on you. So if we just start from the place that they don't actually care about our family, he's not directly saying, I don't care about your family, but his actions show that. Let's stop leading with our family. I think that our family are precious resources and we should stop talking about them at work, only to the people who care and matter. And I'm going to choose who I share my children's stories with and who I, have conversations about that. Because the truth is she needs to leave at 4 o'clock because she got her work done.
Yeah.
Because she's a corporate badass.
Yeah.
Because she's good at her job, because she gets paid for her ideas, not hours. It doesn't matter if she's there from 4 to 5. And so if we lead with that in our conversations with people who don't really care about our family and all of the personal things anyway, we're more likely to get the outcome that we desire, or we're not. But the clarity is so much clearer because it's like, oh, I'm in a job where it's required to work from 4 to 5 every day. It's like, it's not going to change. Okay, so then I have it back to empowerment. I have a choice to make. I can quit. I can leave. I can talk to his boss. I can get a job in another group. I can hope that he gets laid off so that I can move on, whatever that might be. But we're sort of regaining that power back and saying, oh, it's not that he's fighting my family, which hurts.
Yeah.
He's actually just trying to do his job, and he's a bit of a not such great leader, like we can agree on that. Yeah. But take the family out of it and just start communicating. That's a great way to begin with boundaries, is start communicating how you're doing your work. I have a process called showing your work, what it is that you did that day, what you delivered, how you're going to not make up for that time at 10 o'clock at night, but make up for that 4 to 5. How are you going to get that work done so that it doesn't become an issue? And you just leave at 4 every day to go pick up your family. Like, that's really what we want, is we want to not have to explain ourselves.
Yeah.
So show your work. You know?
I could say so much right now, but let me just say this one thing. The other thing that really strikes me about that comment too is something I talk a lot about as well, which is language, right? And the power of language in in life, but let's just use it in the context of this example, but how we language things matters. So I am actually almost maniacal about being very careful between fact versus fiction. And again, understanding what is the situation at hand versus adding any value or any meaning, a meaning we ascribe to things. And so when I hear that comment from whoever answered it, it's like I would want so badly to say, just be very careful that we're not ascribing meaning where there isn't any. And you're saying the same thing, Stacey. It's like, it's not about the family. It's not about, the boss not caring about your family. The boss just simply cares about the work, right? So it's making sure that we can, I always say decouple the highly charged language that we use, because that will be what leads you into why you can't do something or why you can't assert a boundary. I'm just such an advocate for being really clear on making sure we don't use loaded language to explain our experience, because that will drive the way you see things, and you will feel trapped.
Yeah, nothing is going to help, right? Like, and that's, and so, and I want to also acknowledge back to, again, this comment, but I just think it's so great. I love having conversations about real challenges that people are facing. So I know we're coming back tomorrow. Please post comments on this. Let us know where your real challenges are. But I want to also make sure, as we head out today, that this person who made this comment is so not at fault in this situation. So we do the decoupling work for ourselves, but it is not at all her fault. Like, she has a bad boss. Like let's also look at, what it is. And when we can decouple it, I love that process, Teresa. It's so brilliant. When we can decouple it, we can see it for what it is, which is just not a great person that I want to work for. And it's like, then we can really do something about it and make a change, because otherwise we're putting our own little cycle into it and making it more than what it is. But it's like, sometimes there's a lot of not great leaders in leadership, and that's why I want you to get promoted. We need more women like you.
Yeah, and I just love that you said no shame, no blame, right? Like, this is not about making anyone wrong. It's about, we want to get to a solution. So let's work for ourselves so that you can have the life and the career that you want. Stacey, I know we can't stop. I know we just keep going and going, but we're going to be back tomorrow. We'll be on Stacey's page, or Stacey's LinkedIn page tomorrow. So be sure to come back and follow us. And if you have any comments or feedback, we are open. But this has been so much fun, and we will see you.
Thank you, Teresa. This has been awesome.
Thank you. So much fun, Stacey. Talk soon, everyone.